The Reality War was an episode of Doctor Who that aired at 1:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on May the 31st, 2025. It had a surprise regeneration, bone creatures, Omega, a lot of misogyny. Omega didn't have a crab claw. Let's talk about it. But before we do, the final prediction, the final cat. If you haven't been here the entire rest of the season, come on. But anyway, I had one of my cats in a percentile die predict the quality of each episode before the season started airing. So let's go ahead and see what my cat and a percentile die predicted this episode would be like. My cat Nico predicted the episode wouldn't be very good. The percentile die, however, predicted that it would be a 70 out of 100. I'm gonna split this down the middle and give it like a 55 to 65 out of 100, I think. Usually with my reviews, I like to do the positives first. That way, if you don't want to hear the negatives, you can go ahead and click off because I totally get that. But this episode was so 50-50 for me that it feels like all the positives go hand in hand with the negatives so strongly that I don't think I can talk about them that separately. So maybe chronologically, I addressed the first elephant in the room. Okay, I know I dressed up like the Ronnie last week. I hate to be an outfit repeater. However, I need you to take a look at this coat that I thrifted today and tell me that it isn't the Ronnie, but just in purple. Second elephant in the room, and definitely more important than my outfit, is the fact that a lot of us have the general consensus, and this does seem to be the truth, that Ncuti Gatwa was not originally planning to leave at the end of this season. However, waiting for Disney Plus to renew for a third season meant that he just couldn't wait that much longer and wanted to go ahead on other opportunities, which I completely understand. However, we do know that they did reshoots in, I believe, February of this year, so quite recently, and that means they had to rework a lot of the episode. It is very clear, and I do try to give the episode some grace for that, and I ask you to as well. However, of course, what we get is what we get, and we're allowed to criticize that. My first positive, I've been saying this entire season, and I'm gonna still say it here, everybody involved with making the sets, the costuming, everything related to that, incredible. I really hope that they all are patting themselves on the back because the season has been so visually gorgeous. The sets, the costumes have been incredible, and I'm so grateful for them and all of their hard work. I adored the opening of the episode. When I tell you that Anita coming back was one of the craziest and best moments for me this entire season, I mean it. I nearly leapt off my bed and was like, what are you talking about? The queen has returned. Even with only one episode, she's easily one of the best characters from this era, and I was not expecting her to return at all. It somehow works, though I do wish she had more to do other than just holding a door open, but it was so great to see her. And you guys, I never did a Joy to the World review, and I also didn't do a Church on Ruby Road review. Anyway, I thought the tie-ins to Joy to the World, which is an episode I did enjoy but forgot to talk about, I thought that was done well and was very sweet. Now listen, they really teased me, okay, because I thought for sure that looms were about to become canon. Now, I am gonna go ahead and take it because I'm a greedy little bastard, but I'm so confused by what went down there, because from what I had assumed with the Time Lords, with the 15th Doctor being the last of the Time Lords, I assumed that they were talking about what the Master did in Series 12, but it kind of seems like Russell T Davies might have invented yet another event that killed all of them, and I'm just very confused by that, because I don't understand. Like, was the Master just doing crazy vasectomies? Or, like, what he did? We didn't get looms, is the main thing, okay? They chickened out of it last second, and I am saddened by that. However, again, it gives me just enough ground to claim it, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that if you don't mind. The Ronnie was great. Okay, Archie Punjabi did an amazing job. She was just so electric every time that she was on screen, and her and Shooty have such a great chemistry and did such an amazing job playing the Doctor and the Rani's dynamic. Like, truly, it was a joy to watch them play off of one another. Beginning bits, I do really like how they did the Rani. I think it was really compelling how she wanted to resurrect Omega, and she wanted to make a new Gallifrey, you know, in her image with her agenda. It's like, it's a success, but also revenge because that society originally cast her out. I thought that was really well done. And then Omega shows up. Now, Omega's design I'm not too bothered by, other than, you know, the general fact that he never had a body before. That was kind of a big deal. He's fugly for sure, but like in a really good way, like a really good creepy way, and I do like the idea of him, you know, being warped over time into that legend and mad titan and everything, but he just doesn't do anything. He eats the Rani, so she's gone, just like that, and I think that was one of the key moments where the episode really lost me. Because how do you set up, you know, the whole Mrs. Flood mystery for 2 seasons? How do you make it such a big deal in the Interstellar Song Contest when they regenerate? How do you have Wishworld setting up her whole plan and motivations, and then she just gets gobbled up just like that? And that could have worked for me if Omega was truly the big bad, because when that happened, I was like, okay, but you know, maybe Omega's about to get really crazy, right? The real reality war is about to start, and like everything we thought was gonna go down is nothing in comparison to what's really gonna go down. Nope. He just gets lasered to death like 5 minutes later after doing nothing else. And then also Mrs. Flood leaves, so who knows why she had to be here? Who knows why she was breaking the fourth wall? Who knows? I remember watching it and just sitting there and feeling so disconnected and genuinely baffled that everything cool that they had just set up was gone, like, immediately. The simplest way possible. Like, there really wasn't a truly clever plan to defeat the Rani or Omega. The Doctor just lasers him to death. I love the Time Lords. I love their lore. I loved the kind of stuff it seemed like they might be doing with the Rani, what it seemed like Omega could bring to the table, and none of that played out in a good or fulfilling way, and that's really disappointing. Now, all of that which I have just discussed, I consider to be the first story, because it really does feel like a 2-parter in and of itself, and that's probably due to the reshoot. You have the first story, which is, you know, about this super serious and mysterious threat that's coming from the depths of Time Lord history in the Underverse, you know, brought forth by this cunning and ruthless scientist. But that story wraps up pretty much as soon as it gets started. And then you have the second story, which is the good stuff, or at least the better stuff. The second half of the episode, where everyone is trying to ensure that Poppy stays real and stays alive, that to me is Doctor Who hitting some of its best notes, or at least trying to. The Doctor sacrificing himself to save just one person, just one life, and the impact that that one life can have on individuals, but also the whole of reality. Like, that is just so key, like, heart of Doctor Who for me. And the scene where the Doctor and Belinda forget Poppy, just the visual of them handing her coat back and forth, and it's becoming smaller and smaller and more insignificant as their dream disappears, that is one of the best scenes for me from this season. It's just so good, and the contrast between them, you know, happily discussing where they're gonna take Poppy, and just like, Ruby, you're sat here and there's just this growing sense of dread as you're realizing, yeah, okay, this was all way too good to be true, and oh my god, she's slowly disappearing. Like, it was just so tasty, and I that scene. I'm preparing myself because now is the time for me to ask and discuss, Frank, why at the end of the episode is all of the stuff with Poppy so weird and so misogynistic? Belinda begins this season as one of the most interesting and compelling companions that we have had in a long time. She's not easily impressed by the Doctor. She challenges him on something like scanning her DNA. You know, she's very intelligent. She shows a lot of initiative. She doesn't just want to go home, right? She demands to go home. And then, after her third episode, she has nothing to do besides basically just react to the things happening around her. And you would think that that would change in a finale where everybody is coming together and giving their best fight in the finale of her season, but instead, she is put into a literal box while the main conflict is going down. A literal box. Ruby, the companion from last season, has more to do in this season than Belinda does in her own season about getting her home. And what's her ending? What does she go home to? Well, Belinda doesn't go home because the Belinda that we meet at the beginning of the season effectively does not exist anymore and apparently has never existed. That Belinda, her life as she knew it, her motivations for getting home as she knew it, as we knew her, is completely overwritten like a game save to make her the mother of a child that she only has in the first place because of a conservative podcast guy forcing her to have a child in a fake reality of his image that pushes her into traditional gender roles. How do we go from very obviously showing that that world is a wrong conservative construct pushing people into molds that they shouldn't be in to overwriting a woman's entire life to make her just a mother? And I do say just a mother because that's all her character is in Wish World and the Reality War. She has nothing else to do, no other aspect of her personality. She is just Poppy's mother. What I just said, I was being very careful to explain why I was using the language I was about Belinda just being a mother, because I want to be very clear, okay? There have been a lot of discussions, with me and people who feel similar to me, and mothers and women who feel very differently in the Doctor Who fandom. I want to reestablish here what I have been telling them, which is that the problem is not that Belinda is a mother in general, okay? If anything, I think it actually would have been 10 times better to make her a mother from the get-go. Can you imagine how great it would be to see a single mother traveling in the TARDIS by accident, pretty much by being kidnapped, but fighting to get back home to her child, and, she's still having fun traveling and maybe getting a little enticed into that life, but every bit of danger has 10 times higher the stakes because she has a little girl depending on her that she needs to get home to, and then that home and her child come under attack, and that's the big heart and the big danger behind the finale that would have been so good. The problem, though, is that Belinda isn't a mother from the get-go. She does not ever have Poppy in the original timeline in any of the episodes we see her in before Wish World, and she never seems to express an interest in having a child or having a family. In fact, her introduction episode has her going up against Alan, who is trying to push her into a box and marry her, twice, and trying to make her into somebody she's not. She is very independent, she is very strong, but most importantly, she is her own person with her own life to get back to. And yet, the end of this episode has me feeling like that life just wasn't valid enough of a reason for her to want to go home after being kidnapped by a space-time traveler? No, because the Doctor and the show goes ahead and rewrites her entire history to make her whole story and her whole motivation centered around Poppy retroactively the entire time. The episode basically puts her right back in the box they just criticized in the previous episode after they already gave her nothing to do, after they took away everything interesting and powerful about her character. It's just maddening that we get the Belinda we start with, and then all of a sudden she has nothing to do, and her final 2 episodes, out of only 8, mind you, fully and only center her around being a mom to a kid she never had in the first place. And then her entire history and everything we've seen thus far are erased to center around that kid and not around her? And then to take it even farther and frame it as though her meeting the Doctor and her traveling in the TARDIS were actually just so that Poppy could be real is crazy. And if the idea was to make it that Belinda without Poppy was actually the wrong reality, as some have suggested, that was not communicated properly or not reworked properly for the reshoots, because there is no indication that she wanted a child or wanted a family from the get-go, or that her life before was wrong. There was no indication of any of that. And some have said that she really wants Poppy to be real, and so she wants to be a mom, okay? And I get that. But I'm really hoping that people can understand that there is a very tangled spiderweb of consent when, again, the only reason she has this child in the first place is because of a man forcing her to have that child in a conservative's wet dream version of reality where she's fitting the mold of a housewife and a mother only with no other life or value of her own. And then another man proceeds to take away all of her agency and rewrite her entire life without her ever truly knowing what is going to be done or what has been done to make Poppy real. And she never will know, right? Because she doesn't remember what her reality was before. Being a mother is her reality now because men determined that for her on and off the screen. Scene where she's like, I don't know, it feels like I've forgotten something is kind of played as this like bittersweet, send off, but it's actually horrifying. This woman has no idea that just like a couple of days ago, she had a completely different life of her own, and now everything has been changed and altered by men to make her a single mother. I need more women to be involved in writing Doctor Who. Okay, I need more women to be involved in making Doctor Who in general. And we have made some great strides in recent years, okay? I don't want to ignore that or erase that, but it is clearly still not enough. And that's because we are fighting against a 60-year plus long finish line that men are continuing to push forward and forward and forward with themselves at the forefront. And even with those great strides, even with the fact that it is 2025, something like Belinda's story just made it onto screen, and I don't know how that happened. I genuinely cannot wrap my mind around it. How do you look at the Belinda at the beginning of the season who is so strong and independent and has her own life and is fighting against traditional gender roles twice, and then you give her that sort of ending and you don't see how much of a disservice and how much of a loss of agency that is for a woman? So I am extremely disappointed in the finale and really the entire season and the entire show in general for what it just did to Belinda Chandra, and what a waste. What a complete fumble of an incredible character. And you know what? Now I'm pissed, so I have some extras to talk about. Rose and Shirley, okay, they virtually only exist to be repeatedly discriminated against. They have almost nothing to do and nothing to truly contribute to the plot beyond the Star Beast, which was 2 seasons ago. Anita is also pregnant, which could just be the actress, to be fair, I don't know, but there's a dedicated segment all about how she's pining after the doctor and looking for him, and then all she does in this finale is live as a literal doorstop and then have one-liners about how simple she and her job are. Ronnie got chomped before she could ever be a true threat, and then Mrs. Flood is just subservient to her and really doesn't matter in the long run. Ruby has to be nice to the guy who manipulated her, attacked her, literally killed people, and then forced everybody into a discriminatory conservative reality and give him a nice, cushy, sweet, happy ending because she's just so kind like that. And then the Doctor and Belinda act like she's literally insane for suggesting that Poppy even existed when the former is one of her safe people who knows that she has abandonment issues. It seems like most of Kate Stewart's scenes are trying to stick her with a guy, which is kind of propaganda I'm falling for, but not really. And then they keep having her be evil or like really discriminatory in alternate situations. And while we're on that thread, Carla Sunday only exists to foster babies and then also be evil and a horrible mother in alternate situations. Like, what is this era? What the is going on? I'm gonna push through for what I have left to talk about. I do have some positives left because this is a regeneration. It's the end of an era. And just in general, I really don't like leaving it on such a sour note with me being so genuinely upset. So let's talk about a favorite female character of mine, which is the 13th Doctor, who shows back up. That's another positive for me, okay? I really wish I had been able to watch this purely or to film my reaction for you guys because I'm sure I would have lost my mind. Unfortunately, this leaked online ahead of time, so I did know that it was coming. And if you want to hear me talk about leaks and the way that they are ruining things and changing our relationship with the show and my relationship with the show, you can watch my most recent video. Now let's get into what I loved about the 13th Doctor's return. Whittaker, absolutely incredible. I loved seeing her and Shooty work together. 13 and 15 are such an iconic duo, and we didn't even see them together for that long. Okay, I love that the 13th Doctor not telling Yaz she loves her is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because obviously they don't remember much when there's multi-Doctor adventures, but I believe it was said that a little bit still kind of subconsciously lingers. And I'm angsty, so I love the idea that the 13th Doctor kind of always had this voice in the back of her head telling her that, you know, she never winds up telling Yaz she loves her. They never get that, and that does affect their actual relationship as it happens. And I'm really glad that 13 got to encourage 15 to, you know, go with a smile, because that feels like the beautiful handoff regeneration that we almost got when she said, you know, tag your it, before it was interrupted by the 14th Doctor and the specials. This feels like a really beautiful full circle moment where we're going back to that cliff with 13, who is so hopeful for the future and pushing her next incarnation forward. Regeneration itself is so beautiful, but I wish I could feel more for it. It feels like we just got the 15th Doctor, and we did. His entire era passed by between the last time I saw my long-distance girlfriend in person and us seeing each other in the next few weeks. And this regeneration episode was just so baffling, and the misogyny and the messes of it so awful that I truly just felt like I was completely tuned out by the time he started to pass on, and that just does not feel right at all. He regenerates in the light of Joy's star, and his regeneration energy looks like a star, and he was a star, and he burned so brightly, but so quickly, and it just feels like we really did not get enough time with him. I just feel like they were just finally starting to really click into place and get going with his Doctor and with this era, and then now it's over, and it just feels so disconnected for me and so empty, and I'm just... The most sadness I feel with this regeneration is for what we could have had. The bright bits that we did get, and the very short time that we had them for, and it just feels like such a shame and such a loss for such a brilliant incarnation. And I understand Shooty's reasons for leaving. I do. I don't want to make it seem like I am putting any of this on him. Just in the general sense, it really feels like we did not get enough from the 15th Doctor, enough time with him, enough from this era, and it all just... I'm just like pretty genuinely depressed by this finale. Like, from the feelings, you know, of me being mostly a woman and seeing all the misogyny that we just saw from this episode alone, but from this era as a whole, and then losing 15 far too soon, it's just... Oh, and then Billie Piper's back, which is nuts, by the way. I'm not overly negative about that, right? I'm more just very cautious and, you know, very nervous about how this is going to play out, what this means, where it's going to go. I will say, it is absolutely wild, right, that the two incarnations, you know, the first mainline female Doctor, the first mainline Black Doctor, two incarnations who brought some much needed representation into the show, catapulting the show into the future, bringing a fresh new era on, both wind up regenerating into nostalgia castings. Like, that's just crazy to me. She is not credited as the Doctor, and I am in two minds on this, because on one hand, I really hope that she isn't the Doctor, because I don't feel like I could ever truly separate her from Rose Tyler, and I feel like the show wouldn't really be able to handle that or do that well either. On the other hand, I feel like if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna pull this stunt, you might as well just go full throttle and make her the Doctor. Like, you might as well just commit to it. In general, there was a lot here that was good, but it mostly feels like there was a lot that could have been great and just completely fell flat or was really mishandled. I mean, in good news, okay, I don't think it messes with Wish World or the rest of the season for me. I did really largely enjoy this season, and I thought it was great fun, and it was a great show, but this finale just, it really did not work for me, and I'm running out of steam, and I'm done talking about it. And I could sit here, and I could make some big grandstand, and I could wax lyrical about how Doctor Who is so dead, and I'm done with it, and I'm never watching this show or covering it again, but I'm not going to, because it's Doctor Who, and it's my life, okay? And this is my circus. These are my monkeys. I will continue to watch Doctor Who, and I will just hope that it gets better and has a bright future ahead of it despite all of our nervousness and anxieties. Thank you so much for joining me this season or just stopping by for this video. You guys have been so wonderful and so supportive. I'm so excited. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers. We did so much together. We talked about so much together, and I am so appreciative of you all. I have a lot of Doctor Who videos and even some non-Doctor Who videos planned for the future, so if you want to stick around and see those, don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Protagonist Ivy YouTube channel. But first and foremost, I hope you had fun this season despite everything, and I hope you're staying safe, happy, and healthy. I hope you're having a great day, night, whatever time it is for you, and I love you dearly, and we will survive this hiatus together.